Welcome back to the Courage Within podcast with your host, Libier. Today, I am beyond honored to introduce a truly inspiring guest. Jennifer Stolo is a powerhouse leader and has dedicated nearly 30 years to making a difference in the lives of others. From her incredible tenure as president and CEO of MakeAWish Foundation, where she helped make dreams come true for thousands of children, to her current role as CEO and producer of Robert Craig Films, Jennifer continues to use her gifts to impact the lives of others. I know this conversation will bless, encourage, and inspire you to do the God-given thing that God has placed within your heart. Welcome, Jennifer. Thank you so much for coming.
Oh my gosh, what a blessing to be here. Thank you for having me.
Oh my goodness. Okay, so I would love to just get right into it. I always like to start with like the hardest question.
Great.
Is that okay?
That's fine.
Can we start?
Let's take a shot at it.
I know that you've dedicated your life to helping others, and in that road, the journey, 30 years, that's a long time.
I started when I was 12 though, you know.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, me too.
Yeah.
I'm only 15.
I know, me
forever.
too. Yes, forever and ever.
However, I do know that there are times that there's been difficulty, challenges, and things that you have faced that have maybe wanted to stop that journey of helping others. What has been the biggest obstacle that you have faced when trying to serve someone else?
Probably a lot of different things, right? When you're in this line of work, nonprofit work, social impact, companies that you're leading, there's so much about the heart of what you do, right? They're cause related, and you want to just give. I sometimes kind of call it the two C's, compassion and competency, because in running a social impact company, a nonprofit, national, local, statewide, it's important that there's so much compassion and heart behind what you do, but there also has to be the competency from it. It's a business, and if not run like a business, then you really aren't ultimately carrying out your mission. So I think, there's a multiple of different things. I think one of the biggest parts is that when you're helping others in the ways that, I've been a part of, it can be emotionally draining. I'm someone that just puts my heart and soul into everything. So when I think about my past career, I think about Boys Town. Boys Town is about children that are in foster care primarily. I worked with many, many kids, from babies all the way up to teenagers. And just as a mother, watching that scenario for a young child is just heartbreaking. Yep. But yet you have to come to work every day and have that resiliency and have that compassion for what you do and that advocacy for them. But deep down in your heart, as a mother, that's so hard to watch, Right.
Yes,
as fast forward, I helped lead the foundation at the California Dental Association in Sacramento for the statewide campaigns that I've done with them, and that was really to increase access to oral health care. And as I got deeper into that and worked in the clinics and really tried to push our initiatives across the state of California, again it came back to children. So many children that didn't have the type of care that we all have, that we take for granted.
Absolutely.
Often, right?
Yes.
And simple dental care, and to see children and young adults, at the time that would not smile. They would not smile because they didn't want their teeth to be shown. But then the care that we were able to provide through so many different wonderful initiatives, changing a person's life by simply changing their teeth, brought this. So, then I think fast forward, MakeAWish. Yes, a decade at MakeAWish, so near and dear to my heart. And so many amazing things. People always say, like, what a sad thing to work for. And it's like, no, actually, 75% of children who receive their wish actually go on to live long and healthy lives. And many people don't know that. So that's where I would always, gain my strength from. But there still was the other 25%. Right. And again, it goes back to, I think, the emotional piece that someone like me that just puts my heart into everything, but then as a mother watching another mother see a child be sick, see a child pass away. Yep. I think that alone of all of my career is the most heartbreaking, is to watch. It almost makes me emotional because there are so many times that I would sit with a family, and a parent, and couldn't even imagine that kind of pain.
Right, because you're there. You have a child, and you're like, I can't imagine what you're going through. You can never know what someone's going through until you go through it yourself.
Right,
the act of compassion and empathy, and
and I have 6 children, you know, and my husband and I are so blessed that every one of them is healthy, you know, to this day, and hopefully will be. And so that's a heartbreaking thing, to be able to step in someone's shoes and see what's happening there. And then I think, you know, to my current role, you know, No Address is a phenomenal film that really addresses such a difficult topic, though. And in making this movie, as I'm sure we'll get into a little bit more, you know, really diving in deep and making sure it was authentic allowed us to really experience people that were experiencing homelessness. And again, as you kind of see the theme, my whole career has really been around serving others, but primarily children. And so I think my passion, part of all of this, was again seeing children who leave the foster care system, 1 out of every 3 in California, end up homeless, and watching families that are homeless, therefore watching children who are in a position that no child should ever be in. So I think when you ask me what's the most difficult thing, these are all things that I have done my whole career that, and I will continue to do, to make, you know, every effort for every person to have a better life. But there's always that part in you that's so hard to watch. Tragedy and these kind of situations happen to any one person, especially children.
Absolutely. Yeah, I cannot even imagine you just bearing your soul each day. And obviously it's not like it's happening to you, but because you're in it, it is, right? The Bible says, rejoice with those who rejoice and grieve with those who grieve. And it seems and sounds like you're bearing these people's pain and sort of stepping into that. Like, no, I'm not in this, but I am going to serve those who are. And in that, I'm going to get a little beat up, a little out of shape from the causing someone else or just meeting someone else where they're at. And I feel like compassion and empathy is built on action, right? Like you go and you see and you figure out how that person is living or like what, and then that enables you to be a better servant, but it comes at a cost, right? A cost to the heart of like, oh, this is not my heart for, I would never want this for any mother or father to go through this, and I would never want to see anyone on the street homeless being, you know, and from childhood. You just see you almost see all the bad of the world.
Right, it is. And it's, you know, to your point about faith, though, you know, the opposite side of that is that you always lean into your faith, you know, in any difficult situation or anything that you see that you think is bad, right? Because we know, you know, that everybody has a journey, that God is leading us and we're being guided in this way. And, you know, I just had a conversation with a young girl yesterday at Jessup University, and she was going through something that was difficult. And I had reminded her that, you know, so often, you know, we're going down a journey, but we don't know what this is for, and we don't know the reason, but God does know. And if we can keep reminding ourselves to lean into our faith and know that we will get to that end point and we will turn around and we will look back and we will say, oh, okay, I get it, God. You know, and that happens so much in, you know, our lives, so much, you know, in my life, you know, along my journey.
Would you be willing to share maybe a story of how that took place in your life? Maybe a rough patch in your moment where you were like, okay, God, I know that you have something better, but right now I feel a little broken.
I would say 2020, during the middle of COVID, I actually was diagnosed with breast cancer. And it was heartbreaking when it happened, I think in one weird way, because there I was as president CEO of MakeAWish, and I say cancer all day long. I talk about cancer all day long. For 10 years, this is all I've known in my career. And to hear someone else tell you have cancer was like this flip of a switch, you know? And it would happen one night. I crossed my arms, I found a lump, and fast forward a week later, I had full-blown breast cancer, multiple lumps, multiple tumors. And I think the hardest part for me was, I never get teary-eyed, but sometimes this does, when the phone call came in 6 days later, and my husband and I were waiting for it. And when I heard those words, you have cancer, I still remember standing up against a wall, and I just slid down it. And I just, like, the air just left the room, and I couldn't hear anything. I couldn't feel anything. And all I kept hearing was that word. And my husband was with me, and he was talking to the doctor, and when we hung up, I don't even know what she said, except to know that I had cancer. But I think the hardest thing in that very moment was, oh my gosh, I have to go tell my children. And I think as a mother, it's
tough.
Like, I was so afraid for me, but I was so afraid for them, and I was afraid for my husband, whose face was just white. And it was in the middle of COVID, and I always remember that the blessing out of that moment was that they all decided they wanted to come home. I had 2 kids in college, I have 3 kids in high school, and they thought it was really cool to come home during COVID. The Wi-Fi was going down left and right, and I was like, oh my gosh, there are so many people in this house. But in that moment, when we were behind closed doors, I knew all I had to do was walk upstairs and just be with all of them, and I could hug them and be in person to tell them like, it's going to be okay. We're going to fight this. We're a tight family. And I remember one of my kids said, at the end of, after, I told them, talk through it all. And one of them said, why, Mom? Why would this happen to you? And I remember at that moment, because I kept saying why in the back bedroom before we'd come out. And I'd said, you know what, everyone? We're never going to ask why again. Our faith tells us not to ask why, not to question why this is happening. But there are blessings that will come from this. And it was the hardest day in my life. I was afraid for myself. I was afraid for my husband. I was afraid for my children. But in that moment when I said that to them, we all kind of said, like, yeah, we're going to do this. And we're going to not ask why. And we're going to lean into this. And we're going to just see all the positive blessings that come from it. And sure enough, that's, story after story I could tell you of just waking up going, wow, what a blessed moment I just had. What a blessed conversation I just had. Wow, the way I think about life, from this experience is different. I'm changed for it, and that was 4.5 years ago.
Wow.
It'll be 5 years in October.
Wow.
That I'll be cancer-free, and super excited for that day to come. And it's been a road that, a long road, but a road that every day I can turn around and look back and say, like, I remember not one Wish kid, but a number of Wish kids that would say, as I would meet them, you know what the best part about having cancer is, Mrs. Stolo? And I remember thinking, like, oh, that sounds terrible. Why do these kids keep saying this? And but there was a moment where it all made sense to me. And I said, oh my gosh, there were so many amazing things that happened for me and to me and for our family and for this community that I was heavily a part of, that there was amazing positive blessings, and the best part of what happened when you have cancer. So again, most difficult, but again, God always reminds us that, difficulties are just opportunities, It's just
really are.
A closed door that's opening a new door to something that's probably more meaningful and more beautiful and more impactful.
Absolutely.
And I'm sorry I'm making you cry.
No, I'm not. I'm not sorry. I'm grateful. The Bible says that pain causes perseverance, and perseverance causes character, and character produces hope, and hope never fails. That scripture has saved me on so many occasions when I felt like, why, God, why are you doing this? Why am I going through this darkness? Why am I in pain? Nobody likes to be in pain. Nobody likes to be told that there is a diagnosis, right? Like nobody, it's so hard for us to wrap our minds around the thing of you're going through difficulty. Nobody would sign up to go and suffer. Right. Exactly. Like none of us would be like, yes, voluntarily, I'm in. However, when we suffer, God promises to give us faith and hope and joy and blessings beyond all that we can think or imagine. And the fact that you used your pain to not just impact those kids. Like, I'm sure they felt like they connected with you on a different level, and were able to see you in a different way. And I'm sure you probably saw in a different way.
Absolutely. I remember this one little boy that I was super close with. He had a garbage man wish, and it was just epic.
What's a garbage man wish?
He wanted to be a garbage man at the age of 5, and it was just the most incredible. Just took over all of Sacramento, and it went international. It was just amazing, and he and I just bonded to this day, and always stayed in touch. And I just remember when he found out I had cancer, all he wanted to do was make me dinner and bring it over to me. And I just love this role reversal of like, they were there taking care of me. And still, to this day, I talk to so many families, and they're always asking how I'm doing. And it's because that's the way the world works, right? Like, I'm not always going to be there to help you. I'm going to need you to help me. And I think that was a big thing that I learned. I was always someone that, like, didn't really ask for help too much. Like, I got this. And I was forced to ask for help, you know? I was forced to pause and take a moment. You know, I always say, like, the power of pause. You can choose it, but sometimes it chooses you. Yeah. And when it chooses you, you just have to lean into it
and listen.
And listen. And like, I had to stop, and I had to ask for help, and there was so many things I couldn't do on my own, emotionally and physically. And so you always think you're there helping others, and when this little boy came and wanted to bring me dinner, I just was like, it was beautiful, and it was a good reminder of, like, it's okay to ask for help.
Absolutely.
You know, that's how the world works.
Absolutely. And every day we have a choice. And what I love hearing in your story, and this is what I'm hearing, is a huge thing. It's attitude is everything. You could have said, this is awful. I mean, it is, right? You're told that you have something that's going to change your life. Yeah. So you could have had a bad attitude, and no one would have faulted you for that. Right. Nobody would have said, oh, can't believe she's mad. Right. But you chose to lean into your faith. You chose to see what God had for you at that time. You chose to allow God to show you how to pause, take the love in that was coming from your family. Like, that seems like, I don't know about you, but the moments I've had that have been really tough have shown me the love of Christ in a completely different way through my family that I would have never gotten to know. So I'm sure that the love that you felt from your family, your friends, the people, you know, the little boy trying to help you, like you don't have that without the difficulty, right? And you don't know, like, it's just insane how when we are hurting and there's trouble, there's a different door that you can take. There's the door of hope and the door of faith that you can take and say, I don't understand this, and oftentimes I don't understand why we have to walk through certain things, right? But I do believe without a shadow of a doubt that God does, if He allows something, He's going to make it good for something, right? There's a verse in Genesis that says, He meant it for evil, but I will mean it for the good of you and many people. So true. God can turn anything, ashes, into beauty. And it sounds like that's what He's done with your story, your life, the brokenness you felt in that moment in 2020, that phone call that rocked you and brought you to your, to your knees. And that's...
And like you say with, your family, because you always assume, that your family obviously will be there for you, and be the rock, I assume. But I think, it was just... being a part of this community too. It was the letters that came, the phone calls that came. And I almost kind of chuckled sometimes because I think it was like people thought, like, she's going to die. I got to tell her this. And it was one of these things where I'm like, you should always tell people how you feel, right? And sometimes I would read something, I'm like, oh my gosh, I had no idea that person felt or thought that about me, and this is so beautiful that it's like, I cannot tell you the amount of just... like letters beyond letters that people wrote, and that like just made me feel so amazing. But I would always go back, and it was something I learned from that moment too, like, don't wait till you think someone's so sick or they might die to tell them that. Tell them now. It helped me to like live in the moment, say the way you feel, be vulnerable, speak out loud, stick to your values, don't be afraid, to say how you feel about someone or for someone or about something, because it was beautiful, but at the same time I was like, we should be talking like this all the time about people.
Where were the letters?
I was like, this was like, how long? I had no idea you knew me or felt that way about me, but it was a beautiful experience. I do a lot of national speaking engagements around the power of pause. And I talk about the 120 days after my surgery and being so sick. And these are the moments that were happening to me. And, how you can see God bring these people into your life that are there all the time, your family, your children, your phenomenal husband that I had, but also these people that you didn't really know. were felt that way about you or thought that about you, and it bridged so many other beautiful relationships. And so I talk about that the best part of cancer, were those 120 days when people just shared, their love and their prayers. And gosh, it was probably one of the most amazing feelings while being so sick and being in so much pain.
Yes.
And that's when you can see when God gives you that balance of, yes, you're so sick and you're in so much pain, but look at all this beauty you have around you. These amazing children, this amazing husband who just was relentless in helping me, get through it, and a community that just wrapped their arms around me.
Oh,
yeah.
That is so beautiful, Jennifer. Literally, that is so beautiful. And that is such a good message. People, tell your people that you love them. Like, right? What is it called? A PCA? Right? This is your PCA to tell those you love.
Exactly.
Love them now.
Now.
Don't wait until someone is gone.
Yeah.
Life is so finite, and it's so quick, and we often don't tell. I know for me, I didn't have words of affirmation growing up very much, so I didn't know how to encourage myself very much or others. I had to learn. I had to pray. I'm like, God, hold my tongue when I want to say something unkind, and just help me to speak life to myself and to others. And he started helping me to be really encouraging. And the thing that I didn't want to say, like, if I walked into a room and I saw a lady that was like beautiful and I was intimidated by her, instead before I would be like jealous or envious, right? And after, I would be like, you look so beautiful. I asked God, like, help me to celebrate others, because celebrating others doesn't take away from you.
Yes, absolutely.
Actually, right? It adds
and lifting women up, right?
Right.
That we should all be on the same page, right?
Yes.
That's how we met.
I know.
In the lobby at Fox 40. Yeah, you said that. I know you said that to me. You're like, you look so pretty. I'm like, oh, that's sweet. And that's how women should be, right? Because it's hard for us. I mean, here, being a mom, a wife, a leader, everybody expects that we have to just be like on and strong and everything, together. And it's women helping women to allow ourselves to, be teary-eyed here together today, to be vulnerable. It's important for us to be that. I'm so glad that
it is important. Yes. So I take that. Tell the people that you love them. Share a kind word with others. Encourage women. I know sometimes women it's hard to encourage each other because we feel there's competition. But let me tell you this: God's economy is abundant. If she wins, you win. Yeah. If she can do it, you can do it, right? If he can do it, you can do it.
Right.
No matter what, there is abundance in God's economy. If someone wins, it really is just this little, like, you know what? I am going to do it too. I'm going to be inspired by it instead of jealous of it.
Yeah.
I would love to pick your brain a little bit about how. Do you have any advice for people who want to be in a role of leaders? Who want to be maybe a CEO like you, or who want to create a business for themselves. What are some habits that are your daily non-negotiables that you do that kind of help you to be a good leader? I know that sounds weird, but I'm like really into morning routine.
Because I'm going to tell you this story now because it's really interesting because I've stuck to it. So many, many years ago, gosh, I don't even remember what company I was at, but they sent me to this amazing leadership program. And by the end, it was an intense program, all about leadership and being a good leader. But at the end, they gave you an executive coach for a week, which was like phenomenal. It was the first time I ever had an executive coach, and it was just this, and I was new in my career. And yes, I was at Boys Town, I think, actually, and I was newer in my career, and really trying to move into that position of leadership. And I remember sitting down with her, and she actually said, to maybe not to the exact words, but like, what are your non-negotiables? Like, what's your routine? What is it that you need? Because I was talking about this work-life balance, and like everybody, kind of are young in their career was like, we need to have this work-life balance. It has to be this 50-50, And I used to always think like, there's no way that it's even, No. There's no way you can get it to be even. There's no, and I used to think of it in a different way of like, what's my personal balance? Yeah. Because my personal balance is different than your personal balance, right?
Yes.
And certainly as a leader, my personal balance is much different than my employees, my entry-level employees, my managers, my vice president. Like, there's different things and different people's personal lives. So I always said, like, it's a personal balance. What is it that I need? Because I actually don't need a lot. having 6 kids, in this blended family for the last 18 years and a household of chaos, but beautiful chaos, there's not a lot of personal time, that I get, And so I remember sitting there with her and she said, tell me the 3 things. And I'd said probably that, like, it's chaos. She's like, what are the 3 things that are non-negotiable that you want to go back home now to your family and say, these are the 3 things that I need, and I need them every day, and they're non-negotiable. And I was like, okay. And I thought about it. And she's like, let's talk through what it is. And I said, I would love to go into the shower and be in the shower by myself, that nobody walks in the door and says, I need lunch money. Do you know where my homework is? Did someone feed the dog? Like, whatever the question is, mom, or honey. I was like, could I just take a 10-minute shower and nobody ask me any questions? And I don't hear anything. I don't hear music. I don't hear anything at all, or any sounds. She's like, okay, that's great. That's number 1. So then I said, okay, number 2, I know on my way to work and on my way home from work, commuting, and this is when I lived in Los Angeles, so there was a long time of commuting.
Yes.
And I said, one way, and it could be going or coming home, but one way I need to play music all the way, and I prefer it to be in the morning because I'd rather have my coffee and my music. And now my music, just so you know, because we were talking about worship music earlier, which I absolutely love, but what lives on my, and I do listen to worship music. I actually listen to that when I work out. For whatever reason, that's my jam. And then, but when I'm driving, I listen to the highway. I'm a total country song fan, and so I said, I just want to listen to the highway, drinking my coffee all the way to work with no phone calls. All right, great. Now go back to your executive assistant and tell them that's the rule. And then my third thing is, again, this was back when there was a house of children and chaos. I made a rule at 9 o'clock that everybody needed to be upstairs, and I just needed to watch like 1 hour of mindless TV, and like literally mindless, so it would take my mind off of like everything else.
Yes.
And I came back home, told the whole family, okay, so had this amazing time at this leadership conference. I had an executive coach at the end. She said, these are my 3 rules. And they all looked at me and they're like, okay.
We don't like it.
Yeah. Well, the first they're like, we don't come into the bathroom and like when you're in the shower. I'm like, yes, you do. Every one of you. Like maybe you don't every morning, but you, between all of you, yes, there's a lot of people in this house. So we said yes to that. And then we scheduled no calls on the way to work, which was great. And then this 9 o'clock thing, that was the thing. I'm like, it's 9 o'clock, but it was great. My husband tried to reinforce it. So fast forward, this is probably like, gosh, I don't know, 12 years ago or so.
Yeah.
And, or longer probably, because I was in LA. And, to this day, now all the kids have grown and they're out of the house. My mom lives with us, so there's 3 of us. And it's really funny because we all watch a mindless show at 9 o'clock. My husband knows not to come in and bother me while I'm taking my 10-minute shower. And everybody knows I'm going to drink my coffee and I'm going to listen to the highway, my country music on the way to work. It's a much shorter commute these days.
Yes.
So then I really need to get it in. But it's funny, long story short, whatever your non-negotiables are, it is important as a leader to have, again, not work-life balance, because I don't prefer to call it that, but your personal balance. And everybody has different personal balance, and you have to find ways. Those seem like 3 simple things, but they literally are so important to me, because my shower is literally where my mind gets me ready for the day, and I actually have my best strategic thoughts in the shower, as weird as that might sound to anybody.
No, because it's quiet.
Yeah, it's like I'm like a genius in the shower. If I could be in the shower all day long, I think I would be like owning Microsoft or something. I'm like a genius in the shower. So like my strategy 10-minute moment is just super important to me. And then my coffee is like, oh, that is my thing. And if I can have that coupled with country music, it just sets me, I walk into the office and I can be the best leader there is, because I'm just like calm and in a good place.
Yes.
And at the end of the day, I'm exhausted.
Right.
And I don't actually want to watch a documentary. I don't want to watch anything overly like meaningful, or like I don't want anything that has to do with my day.
Right.
Like when I was at MakeAWish, so many different amazing things, but sad things too, and it was just emotionally exhausting, as anybody's workday can be. And so it was like it began a tradition of me and my husband, and that's just there's something about it that just takes my mind off of everything during the day that might not be things I want to take home with me, and be able to sit on the couch and hold my husband's hand and and then just go to bed and start all over again.
Yeah, thanks for sharing. It's so important to have boundaries and have a little wiggle room for yourself, right? Even if it's 10 minutes, it makes a difference. It has an impact in your well-being. And they always say, put your oxygen mask on first, right?
That's right. Exactly.
Get that thing on you first,
yes,
right?
I live on a plane, so I hear that all the time.
But it is true in life as well, you know. And even if you're not going out to be a CEO, even if you're the CEO of your home and you're a homemaker, it's still important to have that buffer, that time for self-care.
Right.
And whatever that looks like, you can reevaluate it at any point in your life, or you can keep it as true as you have with what your 3 pillars or non-negotiables. Even though your seasons have changed, you stay true to those, and they help you be the leader that you are.
I think women have to remember that self-care is not selfish.
No.
Right?
No,
you can't pour from an empty cup.
No, you can't.
If your cup's not full, you're not good for anybody else, and I think that's a big piece that, I have learned in being a female leader and, a mother and a wife, a daughter, and wanting to be good at all of those things at the same time. And in order to do that, you do have to have self-care, and you have to fill your cup every day. Every day. And while those 3 things might sound so silly to anybody else and don't even make sense, they're the 3 things that keep me filled,
Absolutely,
and then I can continue to give to others.
Absolutely. If I'm ever feeling depressed, I always ask myself, when's the last time you showered?
There you go.
And I'm like, okay, not to be gross. Like, I shower daily, but there's just some days when you're just like, oh, I'm just in a funk. And then I just think, oh man, have I showered? Yeah. No, I need to go take a shower, take care of myself. Yes. And I used to be this all or nothing person. I thought, I'm a recovering perfectionist, if you will.
Yes, okay.
I used to be a perfectionist, and if I didn't do my workout routine, an hour every single day, then it would be like, well, I'm just not going to do it at all. And it would be this off and on type of thing. And I learned, because someone said, some is better than none.
Yes.
And progress is better than the illusion of perfection.
Right.
No one is perfect except for Jesus, right?
Yeah.
So we are doing something a disservice to ourselves, like trying to figure out how to be perfect at anything, because only Jesus is perfect. So I realized, if I give margin to my life, if I give myself these little self-care moments, 5 minutes of doing my skincare in the morning, taking a shower, going on a walk, reading my Bible, listening to worship music, like that fills the cup so deeply, and then I can pour out to others. It's so crucial.
Sometimes it's better to get it done than for it to be perfect. I say that to my team a lot, and I'm like you. I want it all just right, but sometimes it gets to that point of like, what? It's just got to get done. It doesn't have to be perfect, because nothing will always be perfect. And so you keep striving in that direction, then you're unfulfilled, whether that's your personal life or your professional life, that you have to give yourself grace. You do. I always say, like, being a graceful leader is a good place to be. A lot of times in my line of work, it's the servant leader. And I'm always like, it's a graceful leader, because not only are you giving grace to your team, which I really pride myself on doing that, because everybody makes mistakes.
Everybody.
But it took a long time for me to remember that's also me, that you have to, give grace to yourself as well, too.
Yeah, and we could be so hard on ourselves, right? Like the inner critic in us is like always like, I always say, I rebuke that in the name of Jesus, because Christ has helped me to be on his scorecard. Because of what he did on the cross for me, I get to live a life that exemplifies him. And everything that is true of Christ is true of me. Right? Everything. And I love that he traded all for nothing. I had nothing to offer, and I still have nothing to offer. Like every day I'm like, are we still in this? Are we still making these mistakes? And yes, we are. The best part about being a Christian and knowing that you're a maturing Christian is that you go to God in repentance more, right? We're not going to sin less. There's no one that sins less than this, but we all fall short of the glory of God. And when we see ourselves through his scorecard, we can serve in a really different way. We can give others grace because we know his grace for us. Right? And that's the hardest part of life, right? Is like actually admitting like, oh dang, I don't have it all together, but I'm going to go anyway.
Right.
I'm going to pursue this anyway. And okay, with this, I really am excited to ask you the last question. The film that you just produced, No Address. What was the biggest lesson that you learned through the journey of the movie?
Yeah, I think it's a lot of what you're just starting to touch on is we all get lost at times, right? And someone experiencing homelessness, and you and me is no different, you know? The theme of our movie is homelessness could happen to anyone. And I think those were some of my biggest takeaways. I have been involved in this space for a number of years as my husband leads homeless services actually here in Placer County and Sacramento County and all over our community. So as a family, we are intimately engaged and have visited shelters and had served food and have had conversations. But this movie, we wanted to ensure its authenticity because it is a fictional movie, you know. It's with stars like Billy Baldwin and Ashanti and Beverly D'Angelo and Sandra Berkeley, some great people. But it was important that we made sure that it really depicted the human side of homelessness. And so we actually set out on a journey. The producers actually went across the country for 3 weeks and really studied homelessness, this American crisis, and went to 20 major cities, 18 major states with high levels of homelessness, and really looked at this cause and situation, and a documentary came from it. But nonetheless, the movie was really the goal of what we were trying to accomplish here so that we could use the power of film and the power of storytelling to get the message out to all of us who might think, and I have been there at one point of like, you drive down the street, you look at the corner and you're like, get a job. And people can have that mindset. I feel so blessed that my mindset has changed over the years, and in particularly making this movie, because again, we all can get lost. We all can find our ways and have missteps. And so often what I learned from having these amazing conversations with people experiencing homelessness is their journey. Like, what is the backstory? Because when we walk down a street and we look at someone, we can easily just quickly judge. You know, we can look at someone and say, you're dirty, you're different, you know, get a job, you made poor choices. We can think all of these things in a judgmental way. But if we look at that person as that's Jesus, what would Jesus do? You know, how can we change our mindsets and know that we are all God's children, you know, and we all deserve to be treated in the same way. And we all have the responsibility to help each other. You know, back to the beginning when I was saying, like, I never asked for help, you know, I was just in charge of helping other people. No, the way the world works is for all of us to be doing our part. And so, you know, this movie is really to showcase the human side of this situation in order to encourage empathy and spark better conversations, elevate, you know, the conversation about how as a community can help. We can't live into what, you know, in this industry is called NIMBYism. Like, I don't want it in my backyard. I don't want to be able to see people like that down my street. I don't want to have a shelter around the corner. And why? Like, these are our neighbors, you know? Just because we have an address and they don't have an address, how does that make them different? And why isn't it that we can't lean in with our compassion and our empathy and our faith to be able to help people? And so this isn't just a film. The idea behind this was to create a movement. So people can move past that sense of judgment and open their hearts and their minds to figuring out, what can I do? You know, because we can all do something, you know? People who have time can volunteer, you know? If people don't have time but they have the resources, they can donate to nonprofits that really make a huge impact, you know, in this situation. But more so than anything, when people say, like, if I can't do all of that, what's the simplest thing I can do? I feel like it's such a huge problem, I can't be a part of it even. And I say, there are so many times that I have spoken to individuals on the streets, in shelters, anybody that's struggling in this scenario, and they say, all I feel is invisible. People walk down the street, they turn away, look down at their phone, or look in disgust. Don't say anything. And I want us to be the voice for the voiceless. I want this movie and this movement to be able to encourage people to stop and look someone in the eye and say hello.
Yeah.
And say, how are you? How's your day? You know, and rid yourself of some of the fear. Certainly, I know there's unsafe situations, and so I'm not saying that. But when you know that you can simply walk by somebody and look at them, it makes all the world of a difference.
Yes.
And I know because they tell me it does, you know?
Right.
I had one gentleman, and I tell this story all the time. I said, hi, sir, what's your name? And he looked at me like I asked him the most difficult mathematical question on the planet. And I said, I'm so sorry, sir. I just wanted to know your name because I wanted to pray for you. And he said, I'm sorry. I just was so shocked. I can't remember the last time somebody asked me what my name was.
Wow.
And I think back to your question of like, what did you learn along the way? Lots of things. But that moment in time, just when he said that, it just like broke my heart, right?
That's like, yes.
And I thought, what? Oh, that's just not right. That's just not okay.
Right.
You know, we just have to be better. We have to do better. You know, we have to walk in the Lord's shoes, and we have to look at everybody as they're God's children.
Absolutely.
Because we can do something.
Yes.
It's not a hopeless cause.
Yeah, it's not a hopeless cause. No one is far too gone from the grace of God. No, there's people, I know for sure that if you were to share the gospel with them, they would, we're called to be the salt of this earth. And if we already have the hope of Christ, we're carrying Christ with us. The Bible says that we're the aroma of Christ, and wherever we go, people can feel and sense his love, right? And it is really hard. And I'm convicted of it. You know, I feel like I've been both people. I've been the person that ignored, that was scared, that didn't want to deal with it, that called in the camp. I've also been the person that made goodie bags and wanted to help and you know, have done things that I feel like I wanted to pray for people. So I've been both people, and I feel ashamed to say like I haven't always been the light of the world, you know, because
neither have I.
It's not.
No one has.
I just have to be honest, but I'm really happy that we're having this conversation because I want to be more like that. I think the goal of our life is not to be safe. Safe is not the goal.
Right.
Happy is not the goal. Like, we're called to be warriors for Christ, right? The value of being asked, hey, what is your name? How can I pray for you? Just even hearing those words, how can I pray for you?
Right.
That might happen to be the thing that just changes everything.
Right. Just the conversation, you know? I mean, so many times people would say to me, like, just the fact that you took 5 minutes to sit and talk with me, you know, to go and visit in a homeless shelter and sit and have conversations. I'm telling you, not only do you think that it might change them, it will change you. 1 hour sitting in a shelter, talking with individuals, understanding their backstory, knowing where they are. 20% of the shelters here in our community, actually, people are working full-time jobs. They just don't have enough money to get an apartment yet. So the conversations are just so amazing to have, and it changes your mindset, you know? And I think like where you were going with this is like, we all have to be a little uncomfortable. Like uncomfortable is, you know, whatever that looks like, you know? I mean, I know we're talking about going up to an individual who's experiencing homelessness on the streets, but like anywhere, walking into a party by yourself, you know, sitting at a restaurant by yourself. I mean, the things that make us uncomfortable make us better, you know? And we find so many amazing blessings, I think, in the place when we can let ourselves be uncomfortable. We can let ourselves be vulnerable. You know, we can lean into things that we're unfamiliar. You know, we can walk through doors that we have no idea what's on the other side. You know, and I think for me, a lot of this movie, which has become a documentary and a book and a study guide for our churches and so many things, a soundtrack, the power of music that we talked about, is just all different ways for people to constantly hear the voice of God through what I think is important as we see 2.8 million individuals homeless in our country. I mean, that's so many of our neighbors, you know, and it just shouldn't be that way. And so if this can do anything to help people take action, be a little uncomfortable, you know, find more compassion, empathy, you know, take the time to listen, you know, right? Because we all have a story. Back to perfection, none of us are perfect, right?
No.
You and I probably, cameras off, could probably even tell like more stories of, you know, things that we're not proud of. Things we're not proud of in our life, because we're all not proud of things, right? We all make mistakes, you know, and
but our stories unite us. Our stories stories make us relate to one another. And honestly, like you said, when we share our story and we allow someone else to share theirs, there's healing that happens.
Yes.
I believe that without a shadow of a doubt, because films have transformed my life. Like the way that God started healing my story was through film, through someone sharing their story with me that, hey, they went through this difficult thing, and then I felt less alone.
Yeah, that's how we met, because you were like saying that. I was ready to go on to the interview, and you said that.
Yes.
I love that.
So I'm grateful.
Was it a particular film that you can share?
Actually, not really. It was just, I would just watch something and it would remind me of my past. It would trigger me kind of, you know, because I've been through I've been through trauma. So before I struggled with PTSD, and I would have flare-ups, and I would have like panic attacks, and I would get triggered a lot with many things. But the stories that I started seeing on screen helped me make sense of my own. They helped me to heal. They helped me to know that there are other people that have gone through what I've gone through, and it felt less ashamed. I felt less alone. I felt like there was hope for me to heal and move forward. And if that person could be, you know, where they are, that's why I love inspirational sports movies. Like, especially if they have like Christian morals. You know, like that's like you have power inside you. There's inside power, right? There's personal power that we have with God to change the direction of our lives. And if I can change my life, anybody can change their life, like truly. But I am so grateful that you made the film. How can people watch it?
You can go to noaddressmovie.com. So it's had a theatrical release nationwide, so it's just now left theaters. It goes to streaming, so you can watch it in your home. April 4th, that's next Friday.
Okay, yay! Okay.
Yeah, so go to noaddressmovie.com and you can find all the platforms that it's playing on.
Sweet.
Also, we also have group screening. So if you missed it in the theater, but you're a church or a university or a school or just a group of individuals that want to play it at their church or an auditorium or even in a theater still, you can go to our website and also sign up for group screening. So April 4th is streaming, and
congratulations.
And then the documentary is available too on streaming, and there's a novel and a study guide and a soundtrack and an audiobook from Ashanti. She narrated that. That's coming out, and it's back to that. It's the power of film, but we found too there's so many mediums. You might like a film, feature film. I might like a documentary. You may read a book. I'm only going to listen to an audiobook for sure, because I don't have time to hold the book, right?
Speed it up.
And then like we were just saying, our love for music and how powerful that is. That, you know, that's for me when I listen to music and songs, you know, it helps me to think through maybe a problem or decision I need to make, or how I might be seeing someone in a way that I should be seeing them differently. And so we all find power in different mediums, and so that's why this was really important for us to not only make a film, but do these other productions that actually create a movement, hopefully, that people just lean in more and act more, and we're already seeing that happen across our country, so it's great.
Well, that's amazing, Jennifer. I'm so grateful for your courage. This is called the Courage Within podcast because I think courage comes when you do it anyway, when you're afraid and you do it anyway, right?
Right.
What is your definition of courage?
Oh, gosh, you know, just, you know, pushing yourself even though you're so fearful, right? It's having that, you know, again, if we had hours all in the day too, the way I grew up too created a lot of opportunities for resiliency. And I think when you can find yourself in situations and put yourself in situations where it forces you to be more resilient, courage keeps building, right?
It builds. Yes, ma'am.
It keeps
builds.
building, and it builds every day. You know, we will constantly be on the road to being more courageous, you know, but I think leaning into our faith, you know, leaning into fear, you know, fear is just fear alone, you know. All of my kids played sports. I played softball up through college, and we'd always say softball, everything that happened was between the white lines, first base and third base. Everything that happened in between there is what we take out into life. And it was resiliency. It was learning how to, you know, win, you know, gracefully. It was learning how to, you know, fail gracefully, you know, win, lose, be humble in your successes, but to have the resiliency when you fall, you know, when you have made an error at shortstop. I mean, all of these things, and I think all of those build courage throughout your life, that like, I can do this, I can walk through that door, you know, and not know what's on the other side. And And the fear is just the thing that's standing between you and that, right?
It is, absolutely. And we all struggle with fear. Every one of us. I know if I can tell you 1,000 stories where fear almost kept me from pursuing more of my story, of myself. And there's all these fears, but we have God's power. We have authority with God's word. We can say, fear, you have no hold on me. Jesus Christ has given me a spirit of love and a sound mind, and I'm going to move forward even though I feel afraid. I know that God is with me, holding me by the right hand. Yeah. There's so many scriptures, you guys, that you can meditate on that will minister to your brain when you are feeling fear, because all of us feel it. Yeah. However, when you push through it, you understand that that's a muscle of courage that you've just built. One tiny little habit and step forward can help you to become the person that God created you to become. And that is why we're doing this podcast. We hope to encourage your faith, your courage. I'm so happy that I was able to peek into Jennifer's brain today and to just listen to her testimony, and then just allow her wisdom to guide us into being the courageous people that God created us to be. Thank you so much for being here. I'm so grateful. Thank you. Bye.